Hello and a very good morning to one and all present here. This is Ayush Jain from schoolconnects.in and I welcome you all to this informative session on webinar on improving concentration and focus in your child. It gives me immense pleasure to introduce our speaker for today, Mr. Antriksh Jain. We are glad to have Mr. Antriksh Jain as our speaker for today's webinar. Antriksh is a certified NLP coach and advanced practitioner from School of Excellence. He has completed his post-graduation from Department of Jainology from University of Madras. He has worked with around 500 people one-on-one and also addressed more than 7,000 people, delivering real changes and creating individuals who contain emotional mastery, which is foundation to personal happiness and excellence in life. And also parents, please note that School Connects has launched worksheets for pre-KG to grade 1 for as low as ₹1 per sheet. You can look for the worksheets under the products category at our schoolconnects.in website for further details. Parents, all of you will be on mute for the entire session. You can type in your queries on the chat window below and it will be answered by Mr. Antriksh. Thank you for joining, Antriksh. Over to you.
So, a very good morning to all of you here. And the topic we are going to speak today is about focus, improving concentration with your kids so that they excel in scholastic, in studies, and other activities as well. So, when we talk about focus, and as you're listening to me, there may be notification pings on your mobile, or there may be the sound of the fan or AC where you're sitting. And once there's a trigger of a sound or of someone moving around you, and all that happens in your brain is like how a person tells, yes master, how can I serve you? That's how we engage with any distraction which we come across. So as we start the session, I ask one question with all of you: is your focus really over here? If it is there something distracting you? If it is so, how do we engage with distractions? How do we give it a direction so that all of the distractions which we have helps us make our goals complete, works towards our goals rather than working away from our goals? So with coming back to the thing of focus, we need to understand this thing about brain is we learn in two ways. One is primary way of learning and another is secondary way of learning. Primary way of learning is how as kids we've learned language, we have learned how to walk. It took maybe a couple of years to start talking the mother tongue which we have grown up with. We didn't have to separately learn the grammar, syntax, noun, adjectives. Example, if my mother tongue is Hindi or Marwari, I never had to learn it how we learn alphabets like A, B, C, D at school. And as we start with alphabets, we grow to words and then sentences and then complex theories and subjects. What we do in school is secondary way of learning. So if we understand how human brain learns anything, it's not just about studies. If we understand how human brain and behavior learns or picks up any habit, we can understand focus better. That's the first way of understanding. Understanding focus better is understanding your distractions or your child's distraction. So coming back to the different kinds of learning. So when we are talking about primary way of learning, how our brain inductively picks up habits, behaviors, language, anything and everything when we are as a child. So there was a point in time I remember in my 9th standard, I was hanging out with a separate set of friends. So we had difficult maths teacher who wouldn't teach properly in the school. So we had to take up extra tuitions, and we would go to tuition, and after tuition we would chill out for some time. And there were new friends which I made, and they would speak language which was termed as vulgar. And then it took me a couple of days to hang out with them, and then I picked up the words. And when I was conversing with my parents at home, and I was like, yeah, yeah, and you know that those words which we are not supposed to use, I used that, and my mom was like, 15 to 16 years of all my upbringing has gone down the drain, and you have picked up these words only in a couple of days. And all of these small incidences which happens in our childhood or in people's lives, now when I understand psychology, now when I understand how brain and mind works, I'm able to relate it. There's this school in Ahmedabad which claims that the whole subject which we learn throughout the year, like over 9 months or 8 months in school, can be learned and mastered in 2 months. So the school teaches extracurricular activities and other things like maybe medicine or food science, diet, exercises, art, and many other things in the rest of the months. And most of their students have gotten international awards and recognitions. So I did a case study on that school, and I met the principal and educational director, who is also from the Union Ministry for Education and stuff. So when I was doing a case study on them, I realized uh, they complete the whole syllabus in 2 months, and they just don't complete it. They've also gotten state ranks like gold medal for 10th and 12th. And apart from that, students excel in a couple of art forms or probably sports or something which is uh, which is matching to their needs or interests. How does this happen? This happens with focus. We all would have heard about Mahabharata. There's this mythological characters and the stories which are brought out in India in different versions and different names and in different regions. So there's this one immortal story from that where Arjun is studying in the Gurukul and with his siblings and cousins and brothers, and his guru Dronacharya takes all of them out for a field trip. And at the field trip, he keeps a bird as the focus point and teaches them archery. And he asks different students, what are you seeing? So someone says, I see a huge tree, and on that tree there's a branch in which I see the bird. And there are certain people say, I see the bow, I see the arrow. While when the teacher asks Arjun, Arjun tells, I just see the black eyes of the bird. And that's what focus is all about. So when we struggle with our children who may be slow learning or who may be super fast in learning, but they are not focused towards studying, who are not motivated enough for studies, uh, when we ask them about movies, when we ask them about sports, or when we ask them about car or anything which they are super fascinated about, they have this focus which Arjun had in Mahabharata. So I repeat it again. So in my clinic there was this one child who was termed by the school as attention deficiency disorder child, and sort of dyslexic because he couldn't spell certain spellings. So out of 20 symptoms, there were 4 symptoms which were true that this person may be dyslexic. But then 4 symptoms are not good enough to prove a person is dyslexic. Well, the school had tests and there were psychologists taking up the test, and they gave back the reports, and the parents were startled. While if you ask this child, he was in 8th standard when he met me. And if you ask this child about the latest cars, on-road price of it, what is the mileage, what are the features, he would tell you more than a salesperson of a showroom. That was his level of focus. So while understanding different aspects of focus, you have to understand that focus is a mental strategy. For example, when we are hungry, we eat food. And so when we are hungry and we don't get food, certain people order juices, some people go binge eating, some people go eat charts. And these are different strategies the brain uses to satisfy the hunger. So in a similar context, when we are talking about focus, we're talking about focus at work, or probably focus in studies, or focus in parenting, or anything, any context. It's a brain strategy. So the kids which I've dealt with in my clinical experience, all of them have tried off a lot of stuff. They have tried off medicines, they have tried off therapies, they have tried meditation, they have tried a lot of things to improve their focus, while the direction didn't change. So the thing is, like, We do practice, we do certain brain exercises, we can do yoga, we can do many things. All of that is going to improve our focus, while the direction is still a question mark. So now the kids which I'm talking, they would watch a movie. It can be us also. When we watch a movie, we may remember unnecessary details of the storyline. We may remember the fashion, the color of the shirt of the hero. We remember the dress, the date, the place where it was shot, and the lyrics of the songs are just effortlessly on our lips. While the same thing when we are at school, oh, we drain ourselves down, and the states which we have is just not getting inside the head. Okay, so what is the difference which creates this disparity in focus? And with regards to that, let's explore brain strategies even more. So the first thing, understanding focus, is we always talk about focus. Like as a child, I do remember my parents, my teachers. Though I was good at studies, I was equally distracted in everything. I would take up gardening, I would take up reading books, I would take up going to shop, I would do anything, everything other than studies at home. But I would still manage to get good marks. But each one of them would get behind me and they'll be like, Beta, padhai pe focus karo. They'll be like, son, please focus in your studies. Your parents have worked hard. Your school is working so much. They are giving you so much of facilities. And they would try to convince me in every possible way. And then I would be like, yes, I would focus. The same thing happens with kids I meet day in and day out. So there was a seminar which I was addressing to 10th and 12th standard students who were appearing for board exams, and just before my speech, the principal opens the speech and he tells, all we need is focus in our life. All you need to do is focus instead of getting distracted in social media, in relationships, in fights, or in cars, or whatever interests you, which may be a possible distraction. Try to focus in your life. So what happens in the brain of kids is they are tired of hearing this. They are super tired. While there's this one time when I was interning in an office with Asia's finest coaches, and I was doing a project management for them. And then I had a late night over, so I was not that focused at the work, and I was like drowsily working on the system, and my eyes were drooping with sleep. And all of a sudden, my boss enters the cabin, and he's like, "What the hell are you doing over here? Aren't you? Where is your focus?" And then he asked me to get up and go and do something, like how we do in school. Like, they'll pull the ears, or they'll ask you to wash your face and come back and do something, so that your states, your emotional states, the biochemical in your body released by your brain, which sustains focus, changes. So my boss did the same thing, and he asked me to get inside a really peak state, and then I got back and I started working. And you wouldn't believe that I was working on this project for 2 hours, and in the next 15 minutes, I finished the project, which would have anyways taken 6 hours, like probably a day of that day. And that there's similar incidences in all our lives, where someday we are supercharged. Maybe our cousins are coming at home, or maybe there's festival, or maybe there's some event at home, or something which is of important to us, maybe a meeting at office. And we would complete, or maybe we are leaving on a vacation. We would complete all our work very quickly with focus and with all the quality which we want to deliver. While there are days that our moods would be affected by anything which is like, anything small disturbs our mood, and that 15 minutes ka work or 20-minute work, we prolongate it, we procrastinate it. So focus is a biochemical thing in your body. And even before you understand the biochemistry of it, if you understand that focus works on direction rather than working on things. We speak about focus a lot, but we never demonstrate it. That one episode from my internship period that my boss demonstrated what focus is changed my game. So one of the times in my music class, we have this notes, right? Like sa, re, ga, ma, pa. There's those 7 notes, and we have permutations and combination of these 7 notes, and we try to sing and make a raga out of it. And I was working around it, but there's this one note called ma in between, and I just couldn't touch that note. So what my master did was he played the harmonium and he asked me to just connect with it, just match with it. And then I couldn't do it for 15, 20 minutes. And then suddenly, all of a sudden, I got that match and I got that note right. So that's where it works. A lot of times when we are doing max and we are not getting the sum, a friend of ours helps us and then he shows us the steps. And then we just get it. And from that day onwards, we never forget the concept. That's how focus works. We would have eaten cupcake or we would have eaten a food at one particular food joint and we never have forgotten that. So focus works on biochemistry. Focus works on engaging senses of your life. So basic 5 sense organs is eyes, nose, and ears, and all this olfactory, gustatory, these 5 sense organs. While if we engage all of these sense organs whenever we are doing anything, like when we watch a movie or when we are on social media, every notification thing which we hear is like, the ears give attention to it, and our brain releases biochemicals which makes us happy, like serotonin. And then we keep running the cycles of happiness by getting back to social media again and again. So my question is, what if we could get the same focus in the areas which we want, with regards to our children in terms of education, or be it ourselves in work or whatever we are doing? This is a myth that people don't have focus. People do have focus. Otherwise, they wouldn't have survived as humans. People do have focus in different aspects. The only thing is direction, which has to be worked upon. So the first thing of understanding focus is it works on biochemistry. There are certain hormones which are secreted. So you may ask a question when we have the question answer slide slot, that my child is super focused in sports, but when it comes to studies, he's not able to focus. The only thing which is stopping him is having the same biochemicals released on demand when he's studying. So we do have our favorite foods, right? Like some may love pani puri, some may love idli, so, some love dosa, and some love pizza. And there are certain people who are specific that I want to eat this particular thing at Flower Drum or Domino's, or there are specifics. As I'm talking to you, you may remember the food which you love, and the moment you see an image of it in your head, your mouth already starts watering. Now this is what means focus on demand. And how does that happens? Let's explore the primary way of learning and the secondary way of learning. So as I was telling to you, primary way of learning is inductive. We just learn. We use our 5 sense organs and absorb the information. I'm not sure, but if you have watched a movie called PK by Amir Khan, there's this one small scene where he doesn't know the language which humans speak. He's taken up a role of alien. And he goes to a brothel, he holds the hands of a mistress, and then he transfers the knowledge inside his brain. And then he starts speaking. That's what happens over 2 years as soon as we are born. And as we are growing up, as we are hanging out with different people, be it our parents, be it our elders, be it the teachers and the students at school, or anyone we hang out our time with, our brain models. So there are these small mirror neurons which you can Google upon. I repeat, you should Google upon mirror neurons. So there are these small mirror neurons throughout our body, which mirrors behaviors and habits from people and replicates in our own life. And those are the strategies which I'm talking about. So when you tell that your son or your daughter or your child is not focusing at your studies, it's not that the problem is not about the focus. The problem is about the direction of the focus. Number one, you may understand this better with this example. So that's the story which we have already heard so many times in kindergarten. Like there are two woodcutters, both have a competition who is going to cut the most trees in one day. And both of them are given a, an axe which is blunt. So the other woodcutter just takes up the axe, and when the time starts, he just goes crazily working hard, cuts, tries to cut different trees, and then he cuts one branch, two branch, and the trunk of the tree, and then he continues doing that. Whereas the other woodcutter who takes up the axe, he starts sharpening it. So he spends a couple of hours sharpening the axe so that he can cut it properly, and then he cuts the trees. And at the end of the day, the person who spends more time in sharpening his axe wins the game. The same way, when our students sit for studying, or when you're sitting at work, or when you're doing something which requires peak focus from you, please check your emotional state of mind. That's the first check which you need to do. The first check which you need to do is check the emotional state. In colloquial terms, it would be the mood. Uh, Basically, a lot of students have aversion to the studies. They don't have good relationship. I'm talking in terms of they don't feel good about maths or they don't feel good about physics just because the teacher has scolded him once or twice, or just because certain concepts just didn't get inside. Students are very sensitive. Children are very sensitive. They attach meanings everywhere. So they have attached unresourceful meanings to the subject or the concept of studying itself. So if you find that your son or daughter is sitting and studying, and the face is not lit up like how when we watch movie or when we surf YouTube, our face is lit up and it's fully sharp, full focus and attention. If that's not there, how much hour, how many hours your child would spend on studies, it wouldn't work. It is like cutting the trees with a blunt axe. What do you want your child to do? We always, I'm generalizing this concept, but I'm telling this is the reality which is happening throughout the world. We measure efforts, but we don't measure the direction. So we'll be speaking that, my child has studied for 6 hours, my child has studied for 8 hours, but then where are the results? What are we measuring? Are we measuring the hours we put inside studying, or are we measuring the results or the direction in which the focus is going? So the first thing to stop doing is, if the person or if the child is not able to focus in the studies, ask him to get up, do something very physical. Biochemistry changes on physical activity. So do something physical, maybe running or maybe dancing or maybe doing some exercises like warm up so that he can charge up. And once he's charged up, continue the study. Try this out and send us your feedbacks and how does this work. And we'll keep sharing with you new updates on how we can improve our focus. And the second part of focus is brain learns through intensity. Brain learns through intensity and repetition. So once your child starts repeating the habit of studying only when he's fully focused, not otherwise, because it just doesn't work. There are gone are those days when we tell that discipline works. Yes, discipline works, but it's not about every day sitting and studying for 4-5 hours, but every day 15-20 minutes of peak focus, and you may learn more than what you learn for 3 hours. And I'm telling this after having clinical experience of 3-4 years working with around 80 students of 10th, 12th, CA, CS, UPSC, IAS, who have failed, who have given 2 attempts, 3 attempts, who are not able to remember. And there are certain students who had emotional challenges like depression or different things which were stopping them from unleashing the peak focus at the right moment. And all we didn't work on the emotional challenges. All we did is we made sure whenever this person sits for studying is having good states of mind. So the first thing is demonstrating focus with your child. There are other 6 points which I've already researched and I've brought it out as a paper. You can get those points from from School Connect's resources, or you can also follow me on LinkedIn. My article is up there. It's called Practicing Distraction Like a Pro. So the concept goes like this, that day in and day out, like as I was telling to you, brain learns through repetition and intensity. So if a song which is really intense and engages a guy or a child, the child would just learn the song and keep singing it. The same way, if any subject like physics or like social interests your child would take 5-10 minutes to just memorize it fully, and it's gonna be there throughout the life. So the brain learns through repetition and intensity. So every time when your child is sitting for studying, make sure the modes are on. The state of being is in super focus. And second thing is keep repeating it. And if you repeat it 20, 30 times, the brain will start picking up the habit. So when we sit in the clinic and we work with people, we make the brain repeat the same habit 1,000 times in 2-3 hours. It's a small technique and a form of therapy which we do, and now a new habit is installed in a child. So we program focus in children. Otherwise, what happens is every time we are taking out a book to study, or we are sitting in the class and studying, there's one boy in the class which makes fun, and our attention goes there. As you're listening to me, there would have been certain things coming up in between, maybe a notification beep from your mobile, or maybe someone calling you at home, or maybe a thought that you have to complete certain works before evening. So these thoughts would have taken away your focus for some time. So every time when we are trying to focus, and instead of focusing, what we are doing is we are practicing distraction. And imagine, for 18 years, for 10 years, for 15 years, we have practiced distraction for millions of times. And it's common sense that whatever we practice becomes perfect. And imagine your children, or us personally also, we would have been practicing distraction for so many years. And if you have been doing that, let this Saturday be a wake-up call of stopping practicing distraction in the name of studies, in the name of sports, in the name of whatever work you're doing. Rather, we identify it. So one of the ways of changing it immediately is shifting your physiology. So if you're sitting and you're studying and you're sleeping, or you're feeling bored, just get up and do something very physical, so that new biochemicals release and your focus shifts. So once you've done that, you get back the focus and start studying. And when you repeat this 10, 20 times, you're practicing focus instead of practicing distraction. And I can guarantee you, if you practice focus with your children, maybe 20, 30 times over a period of a month, your children will pick up this habit and they would start focusing automatically in different aspects of your life. Remember the day as children, we were taught how to brush our teeth. So starting 10, 15 days, our elders or probably a brother or people in the school, they would merge it with rhymes, and they would tell, like take the brush in the hand and the fore part of it, the back part of it, the upper part of it, and now gloss. So we do have rhymes for it. And then we did practice it for a certain number of times. And then after some time, it became automatic. Now we brush our teeth, reading newspaper, planning for the day, maybe cooking. We do a lot of stuff like multitasking. Multitasking can happen once the strategy which you're looking forward becomes a habit. I repeat, multitasking can happen after the strategy you have been practicing becomes an automatic habit or a behavior. Similarly, as we learn to ride a bicycle. So first we have like support wheels. We keep riding and trying to get the balance, and there's someone holding us from the back. And after few rounds of practice, the support wheel is taken off, and there's someone still holding at the back and trying to balance. And then we forget that there's someone was holding. We find that balance, and we start riding the bicycle with the utmost balance which we can. And then when we realize, oh my God, we've started balancing, our focus gets over, and then we tremble down. And then few rounds of it, we become expert at riding a bicycle. and then we just learn two-wheeler and four-wheeler similarly. And after a few hundred repetitions, I repeat, after a few hundred repetitions with the proper intensity of the state of mind, or probably the mood, emotional states, these habits become automatic. So I'm talking about the focus which becomes automatic installed in your child. So such that next time, even if he's opening up a book of a subject which he doesn't like, he sits and focuses on demand because it has become a habit. That's primary way of learning. My dear parents and the viewers, wherever you are, habits work these way. There are two ways of developing habits. One is primary way, how we have learned our mother tongue, how we have learned walking and everything else. That's the primary way of inductive habits, of modeling it with mirror neurons. And there's this secondary way of learning, which we always do in school, and we know how effective it is. Sometimes if it is effective, certain times it is not. But primary way of learning never ever fails. Never ever fails. So try focusing on measuring the direction of the focus of your child rather than the efforts which is making. If you're going to judge your child that you're sad for 6 hours, I've sent you for tuitions, I've done so much things for you, but where is the focus, where is the results, it's not going to work. You have to demonstrate the focus to your child. Remember the example of the music teacher who demonstrated me the notes. Remember example of my ex-boss who demonstrated me how to work in office. You have to demonstrate it. Or maybe the teacher demonstrated. Or anyone demonstrates it. Once your child gets sensory-based experience of the focus, your child is never ever gonna forget it. By sensory-based experience, I'm talking of engaging the sense organs. So once you have sensory-based experience of what focus is, it is demonstrated well with your child. All you have to do is repeat it certain number of times, maybe 20, 30 times in next 1 week or 15 days, and your child will develop it as a habit. That's how anyone who falls into addiction, I repeat, that's how anyone who falls into addiction develops it. So I remember my friends who got addicted to smoking or liquor, and I do have a lot of clients coming up for de-addiction at my clinic, and they just started for fun. They did it once or twice, and then they just started repeating it. And after a few months, they forgot that it has become a habit of them rather than they just started for fun. What if, so I propose this thing to you, what if focus can become a habit of your child? Then we can decide where to put this focus upon. So first thing, obviously, it would be in the school and scholastic areas. And second thing would be on building values, building skill sets, building the non-scholastic cultural skills and abilities. So that's the first point on developing focus. We would still continue series of it in future. There are other 5 points which I would like to discuss with you all, and I've already written it in my article, so you can get it on the link on LinkedIn, and School Connects will also share it to you, and we'll take up questions.
So friends, yes, you can type in your questions in the chat window, and it will be answered by Mr. Antriksh Jain.
So one of the questions which comes up is, how do we understand the biochemistry of the child? So understanding biochemistry, I can bet you no one can understand it better than you, because your parents, you've been living with your child. There are times when you tell your child to, do certain tasks, and you can look at the face. I'm talking, look at the face, like the non-verbals of the child, not the reply of the child which the child is giving. Focus and calibrate or observe the non-verbals of the child. So see when your child is sitting for studying, is the face of the child lit up, or is it focused? If it is not, the biochemical is different. So if the biochemistry, the brain is releasing a hormone which makes your child bored, how much ever time he's going to spend with maths or with physics, he's not going to yield up proper results. So that's how you measure biochemistry. Any more questions? So we've been asked about to talk more about the Arjun's focus. So the kind of focus which the story of Mahabharata talks is Arjun was one of the greatest archer and warrior of those times. It wasn't because he was greatest. There have been other warriors as well. Like Karna was more better than Arjun, but it boils down to focus. So he's been trained into archery much later, but he was trained into focus first. So how we are trained as a child to brush our teeth, to groom ourselves, to uh, to probably dress up well, to probably take care of ourselves, to write. We should focus our children. We should work upon our children on training them on practicing focus rather than practicing distraction. It may not be intentionally, but a lot of times we are facilitating the practice of distraction with our children. So we need to take a call. We need to take a call and get back and train our children on practicing focus. Yeah. So there's a question called, kids usually don't show interest when asked for studying. Yes, I've already explained this in the video, but I would still repeat it again. There's a thing called anchoring, where a brain associates different emotions with the things which we do. For example, the moment I talk about your favorite food and the picture is in front of you, your mouth would start watering. And if I talk about your favorite destination for vacation, or if I ask where did you travel last time, the memories of your travel would come in your mind and you'd start feeling pleasant about it. You will recall those memories and you'll be super happy. Now, when it comes to studies, they don't show interest because they have associated feeling of disinterest, feeling of boredom, feeling of anger, feeling of disrespect, different feelings which are not resourceful, which are not positive with studies. So the first thing which we need to do is clear up those feelings. There are different techniques which we may discuss in upcoming webinars, but we should get a neutral feeling and then we should work with our children on studying. So if your child is not interested and you're going to be too pushy with your child, it's not going to work. Instead, it's going to add more of distractive emotions with your child. It's a very thin boundary line. So that's one more question. How to create interest in writing? My son is reluctant and feels lazy to write. How to overcome it? So I'm answering. So it's as simple as anchoring. So next time when your child is writing, or is feeling disinterested, or is feeling lazy to write, make sure you change the mode of your child. You do certain things very physical. Maybe you ask him to dance, or maybe you ask him to run, and validate or observe the biochemicals in the body. And if he's feeling fresh, you ask him to write for next 5 minutes without thinking anything. And once he continues practicing this for say 20, 30 times, the biochemistry will change. And once the biochemistry changes, there's a new neural pathway of habits in your brain. So we've been having cases of like phobia from 20 years, from 13 years. And it just takes us 10 minutes, 12 minutes to take away this phobia forever. So there's this one person who had a heartbreak 3 years ago in 9th standard. And now he's in his 11th and 12th. And he's not able to come over the breakup scene and he's crying day in, day out. And all we do is we sit for 10-15 minutes. We identify all the triggers of the person, where the trigger should be focused upon studies and other goals of life, rather the trigger is focused upon all the things went wrong with his life. All we do is delete it. And we do have techniques of deleting it, which we discuss in upcoming webinars. But as of now, what you can do is do something physical such that your child, the biochemical in your child's body changes, and then immediately ask him to write or ask him to study, whichever he doesn't show interest, and then repeat it for a couple of times and then get back.
So I have a personal question from a parent that how do I reduce the distraction of my child when he sits for study?
Okay, so how do I reduce the distraction from my child when he sits for studying? To be frank, most of the time, students practice distraction. And if they are going to practice distraction, they're going to become super experts in distraction. Like how in sports, if a person is gonna run for a marathon or run for something, they practice for a few months, and every morning they have warm-ups and they run for a couple of kilometers and they come back, and they keep practicing until there is a muscle memory in the person, such that next time when he's running a race, he just runs. So coming back, how do we stop distractions with our child is practicing more of focus. There's this one very overrated example that to drive away darkness, you don't need to push the darkness out. You need to light a lamp or light a torch or put a switch on the tube light. So the same way, to drive away distraction, you need to train your child on focus. Small things, if he starts doing with focus, repeats it 20, 30 times in a month or in a week, the brain will pick it up as a habit and do it. There's another question, tricks to change biochemistry in a child. So how do you shift? So when you ask this question, I would ask a question back to you. When your child is upset or when your child is angry, how do you change the mood of your child? See, the sequence is very simple. So there is some trigger from outside. I repeat, there's some trigger from outside, and there's a biochemical release in the body, and that's the emotion or the mood in which your child gets in. So if your child is upset, there's some trigger from outside, and there's this hormones which make him feel upset, and then he feels upset and demonstrates the behavior. What do you do to shift the moods of your child? Do that. One of the things which works amazingly is doing something physical, because it's very obvious that whenever it's also backed by studies that your physiology affects your performance. So when you're sad, your face would be long, you would be looking down. When you're like super focused, your head would be held straight and your eyes would be focused on the subject. So do something physical and the mood will change. Second thing is shifting the internal images. So now for that to do, you need to understand how internal images work, which you can Google about, or probably we can talk about this in upcoming webinars. So one simple way is doing something physical. Second way is do whatever you have been doing with your child to change the mood. Okay, there's one more question. When asked to refresh, he gets into it and doesn't get back to studying. So that's where you need to come into the picture. You are not a parent at that time. You know, the thing with parents is they may tell something and the children usually don't follow it. Get the hats of a trainer or become the coach for your child for those 2 hours. Keep it very strong in your mind that you're not going to allow your child to distract away. So when your child gets out to focus and doesn't return back, so now he's studying, he's getting distracted, and he's going out to refresh by watching TV or doing something for 5-10 minutes, and then he just doesn't come back. That's why you need to get inside the picture and say, hey, this was a break, not a break to practice distraction, and get back. So there you need to be little disciplined and also impose discipline on your child in a very elegant way, such that your child accepts it very well. My son is 5 years old. How should I make him focus or make a habit for his to read or write or read any books? He is addicted to TV. So now how he is practicing distraction is by watching TV. I think it's a very serious matter, because a five-year-old child addicted to TV, let's take it offline. You can get in touch with me through School Connect and we can take it offline. But anyways, I would answer it here. First thing you should do is stop the distraction. Like, when there are storms and there's a leakage in the roof, first thing which we do is put something in the wall temporarily such that the leakage stops, and then we call in the plumbers and get it fixed, right? So first, stop the distraction. Second is demonstrate more of focus. So until your child is 7 to 8 years of age, you can imprint anything and everything in your child without speaking. So if you advise your child, ki beta or child, do this, do that, there are chances your child may not follow it. But if you demonstrate it, like you sit with your child and demonstrate focus by drawing or writing together, your child will pick it up as a habit. When the child, when the task seems hard for my child will avoid it. So how I make my child concentrate and get the task done? Okay, very simple. So I've answered this in a different way sometime back. How do you uplift the mood of your child when your child is upset or when your child is feeling low? You try to distract your child and get back to the work, right? So when your child is feeling something is very hard, everyone does that. First time when I was working upon uh, trying to learn bicycle, I tried it in sixth standard. It never worked for me. I fell twice, and then I never touched bicycle again. But then in 10th standard or ninth standard, when I went to vacation at my uncle's place, my siblings were riding bicycle, and I had to learn bicycle to be with them. And that's when it was very difficult for me. And then once I started trying, I got that required balance, and then everything is a story and it became effortless. So, first, take out a paper, write 10 things what you do to change the mood of your child, change the emotional state of your child. Do that when your child is feeling it's too difficult, and then motivate your child. Use simple, positive words that child just try it out and see. I know it's hard, but a lot of times it's hard because we don't know how to do it easily. You can do it this way. There are a lot of times when children come to my clinic, they are telling, I just can't learn maths. I just can't bear with my physics teacher. I just can't remember history dates. I just can't do this. I just can't memorize. And when they tell, I just can't do this, they're feeling the biochemistry of hard work in their body. They're feeling burdened. And when they're feeling burdened, you really can't help them. So what we do is we talk to them in a way that shifts their attention, and then we're like, do you really think you can't, or you haven't learned an easy way? And then we ask the child examples of their own life. Like we ask them, is there a person in your class which does uh, which does who does focus really well and he gets first rank or second rank? Is maths difficult for him? If it is not, then we should figure that out and find out how it is easy for him. And when the child figures it out, and what happens is there's a shift in the images which he's making internally, and uh, once the images changes, the trigger changes, and the biochemical changes, and the behavior and the performance changes. And this is how you shift the focus. There's a question: wrong diet gives rise to concentration problems. I may not completely agree, because the case study of the school which I was talking about in Ahmedabad, they give their it's a residential school, so they feed them with milk from a specific species of a cow which is called gir, GIR. So apparently in Ayurveda it is told that the milk of geese cows is very good for the brain. Okay, that may be true, and they're demonstrating results. So we can accept that. While I have seen people too much into junk food, though focusing as a normal child. So yes, diet is important. Wrong diet may may affect your child's health and in turn affect the focus. But then if focus has become a behavior, it wouldn't affect. If the focus is not a behavior, then anything can affect, not just the diet. How to improve a kid's writing skills who is good orally? So if he's good orally, ask him to verbalize it. And when he's in that super states of verbalizing things, make him write. And if he does this 5-10 times, he would start writing well. And it's 11:50. Is there any other questions, or do we complete the session? So thanks for being very patient, participants. Do give your feedbacks and get in touch with the team and give your feedbacks. And there's one last question which I would take up before signing off. Hi, we both are working parents. So how is he who? That's how he's hooked onto TV. How to discipline during that time? He cultivates the habit of reading. Okay. Cultivates the habit of reading is your intention. It may not be your child's preference, number one. So it's anyways going to be a superimposing thing. Let's take it offline. Maybe we can discuss it in a clinic or on call, because it's a serious matter. Because if you were to be working parents, you need to create an ecology. For example, when you're not at home, you would have arranged that your child eats on time, and there are people who take care of the safety of the child. Same way, you have to work on the ecology where your child's value system, the child's upbringing is taken care and not delegated to someone else. Thank you all.
So thank you, Antriksh, for such a motivating and informative session. I'm sure all parents present here have had something to learn from it. Thank you, parents, for taking out time from your schedule on a Saturday morning and being present with us here. Thank you once again to everyone present here, and it was a pleasure hosting you all. Thank you all and have a good day.